Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're going to be doing another episode of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights. We'll take a look at a bunch of different animals and compare them to their real-life fossil counterparts. And today we've got a really big pack. Basically, most of the pack's done, most of this episode's done by one person, OG Bear. He's been doing a bunch of paleo edits that we're going to look over, and then we've got a couple cool new animals, and this will be the last episode for the update with the early Cretaceous pack, so that'll be very awesome to look at, and then we'll do some Planet Zoo stuff. It'll be very, very wonderful. So yeah, we're going to get stuck into our herbivores first. We've got lots of herbivores today, so we're going to be looking at Crytonosaurus by OG Bear, and pretty much everything until the special Cryolophosaurus animal, which is a surprise, it's a new species, are all going to be by OG Bear. So just making sure everyone knows. And we're going to be releasing our first animal, Crytonosaurus. So we got our wonderful boy Crytonosaurus. As you guys know, this guy was named after Michael Crichton, who wrote the original Jurassic Park novels. Let me pause it so we can get a picture of you in the light. Let's speed up time a little bit then. Get you guys both in a good light. There we are. So this guy should be in a good light now. Look at these wonderful little fellas. I love Crytonopeltis, so very, very cute. So we can see some of the changes to better fit the specimen. I'm not sure exactly what we have of Crytonopeltis, but I know we have these quite distinctive plates from it that are like almost like plate-like. Well, obviously like a plate, but more very, very flat, almost like discs. I think it's really, really cool to see that represented here. You can see some of the minor changes. I think the head's been changed a lot to be a little bit more triangular and a little less wide. We can see there. Also, the body's been rounded up a little bit, and the legs have been changed to better fit what we know of Crytonopeltis. Also, I think the tail's been extended a little bit, potentially, and there's been some changes to the... I keep saying Crytonosaurus, but I think the correct terminology is Crytonopeltis now. And then we can see our changes with the... what do you call it? The club on the end of the tail. See, sometimes even words escape me. But we can see, yeah, as I mentioned, the pot belly has been very, very rounded. I think it's also been widened a little bit. Really, really cool animal. You can also see the legs have been kind of leaned up a bit. And, yeah, the feet aren't quite right yet. Similar to Ceratopsians, they would have had 3 fingers with digits like 1 to 3, and then 4 and 5 would be kind of nailless. Same on the back here, but I still think he came out rather wonderfully. Crytonopeltis is a very, very cute little dinosaur. Making some changes to these plates here on the osteoderms and other ones up here. So yeah, looks pretty spot on. I'm not exactly sure what we have of Crytonopeltis, but I know it's not a lot, so it's really not too much you could do in terms of paleo edit. But it seems like this is just looks more accurate to the general anatomy of ankylosaurs. So that is pretty cool. So we'll let this guy walk off and do his thing. Look how cute they are. So very, very cute. Just let them watch up and do their thing. When they change back, do they change? Oh, sometimes you change back with the low distance and such, but it's really, really nice. So now we're going to move on to our next animal, also done by OG Bear. We got a Stegosaur, we got Gigantospinosaurus. So look at this wonderful guy. So we're going to wait until still in the sun. We'll have a look at this guy. So we can see a lot of the changes added to him. He looks generally much more stegosaur-like. You can see the face here has been greatly elongated. Not quite as boxy as the original kind of face that the original had, and also have a little longer neck. Seems like stegosaurs generally have a much longer neck than we previously thought. We thought Miragaia was kind of an outlier, but with specimens like Sophie, it seems like a lot of stegosaurs had a lot longer necks than we thought. And you can see this is kind of interpreted as a dewlap as well here. Really, really interesting. But these guys are more basal compared to their latest stegosaurs like Stegosaurus and Miragaia. But I think it's cool that the anatomy's been changed as well. Also, you can see here there's kind of like a little dewlap, or we know from Stegosaurus they had like a throat armor going down here that could be added into interpretation. I don't think we have that preserved in Gigantospinosaurus, but that is still pretty cool. We can also see the legs have been greatly trimmed up. Dinosaurs have much thinner legs than we realize. Just makes it look a lot nicer in my opinion, but the feet are still wrong, as I mentioned. Like would have been 3 and then 2 without nails, and it'd be kind of like a horseshoe shape. It's very similar to the kind of Ceratopsian that I keep talking about. Not too different. And we can see these big back legs. The back legs look fine though, pretty awesome. And then we can see the back's been generally quite rounded, and we can see the changes in the thigh, because wrong way, but stegosaurs and ankylosaurs have these very wide hips with these wide thighs, and then that leads to the body down to their leg. And then you also see this guy's got a thinned out tail. Though I'd probably make the cardiofemoralis muscle here probably a little bit bigger, and we can see the thagomizers in the back here. Really gives a good look. And we cannot forget our plates here. So we got the 2 rows of plates going down here, I think. They're about in rows of 13. But then we also have the charismatic spikes that give it its name, the gigant spines. Really interesting. It seems most likely that they were on the shoulders here, but there's been some interpretations that consider them back here. But for Gigantospinosaurus, it's most likely here. Still really wonderful, and I think the changes make it look much thicker and wider, but also fit what we know of them much better. So it looks really nice. I'm a really big fan of this Gigantospinosaurus. You did a good job there, OG Bear, once again. So we'll let these guys walk off and do their thing. So look at these wonderful boys. I love the sounds they make. I like how the dinosaurs, I think, got a genuine improvement from 1 to 2, for the most part. Some areas could still use some tweaking, but we've got all these updates. So we'll let these guys walk off and do their thing, and then we'll move on to our next animal. Let me just quickly make sure we're recording. Yep. Next, we're going to be moving on to Barosaurus. So that's another paleo edit that we got, also done by OG Bear. So we can see here we've got Barosaurus, our favourite Australian beastie. So we'll have a look at him when he's in the light. I think we'll have a look over at this one when he's in the light. Really wonderful here, and we can see from the first game it's now bipedal, which better fits for how we know the animal. And we can see a lot of the changes here, particularly in the face that screams out the nasal resonating chamber, or the nostrils, the nares. The fenestrae that cover that has been really exaggerated to really give it that look that matched the fossil. Really much more obvious. I think it looks really nice. Also, the head's been shaped a little bit to better fit the fossil. Neck's been generally a little bit more leaned up. Also, we can see the ridge in the back's a little bit more obvious, and I think the tail's also been extended. Body's been generally more rounded, and you can see the boot there. Well, I don't think the ornithischians have it, but the pubis and stuff and the ischium come out there, allowing more space for the guts. Makes it look much nicer and rounder. We can also see the feet, I think, have been changed. The legs have been changed to just better fit the anatomy of what we know. And yeah, they're still a little longer, which is good. Very nice. And then we can also see the hands. So the hands, I believe that a lot of these Iguanodontians would have been on their way, because we see in later hadrosaurs, particularly like Edmontosaurus, there was like a pseudo hoof going on. So it was like 2 big nails So these guys would have been evolving them on the way, so potential that they probably had 2 or 3 fingers with nails. There's a chart of it that Tomosaurus did. I can't really put it up now. Don't have the editing powers, but I thought this guy really came out wonderfully. It really looks like a Barosaurus. Barosaurus is a really interesting dinosaur. And plus, it's the closest thing we'll get to a dinosaur coming from my local area, since I don't think there's any dinosaurs from New Zealand's not really going to make it, since we barely have any. None of them are named. So sadly, this is the closest we can get to an animal from my homeland. But still really, really awesome Barosaurus. Really big fan of how that one came out, and I love these accuracy edits because it really just shows the weirdness of these animals. So we're going to be moving on from another guy, from our Australian weirdo to our American T-Rex fodder by OG Bear again. We have got Edmontosaurus. So now Edmontosaurus is a really tricky one to judge, because these ones are really nice, but I can't say they're necessarily accurate to either species, though I think they went, because the general anatomy, let me try and find a good one of them standing, they're kind of interacting together. Where are you? You being a bit of a cluster. There we are, we'll have a look at this guy. Really, really wonderful fellow. So we can see the general anatomy fits E. annectens, which is the latest and largest species of Edmontosaurus that lived in Hell Creek, also known as Natotitan or Anatosaurus. We can see the anatomy generally matches to fit that species, but I'll explain why it doesn't fully get it quite right, and also mixes a lot of regalis in as well. So we can see the heads a lot longer and boxier compared to nectens. Nectens was pretty large. I think the largest individual has been estimated to be the same size as animals like Crytonosaurus, so in like the 14, 15, potentially even 17 meter range for extreme individuals. So very, very large animals. Basically the largest animal that wasn't a sauropod alive at the time on land. Very, very huge, and we can see the necks being greatly extended. Also the bodies being just bulked up ridiculously. And then we can also see the tails also being bulked up as well. You can see the legs have also been changed, that we'll talk about the feet soon. Really, really wonderful. Really, really big, bulky. And we also have pretty good, I think, yeah, we have pretty good skin remains from these guys. And it seems like this better, integumentarily, or in terms of integument, it more fits the annectens. But there are some features of this that include regalis, as we can see here. Regalis is quite famous for having this fleshy comb here. It was potentially either for display or whatever, but we know that annectens did not have this. And also, in terms of regalis, it would have had big, round scales going down its neck, which annectens also didn't have. Annectens was generally kind of much more smooth in general. Still a much larger animal. But yeah, I think this is cool, like Amalgamasaurus. That's what we'll call it, but I think it's really cool to explain that as well. I'm really liking the look of it anyway. I like the big bulky look. And we'll talk about the feet, since it's really the only thing that's glaringly wrong. As per some more recent evidence, we know that annectens had kind of a hoof going on, so it was kind of the thumb here, or the pinky here, and then you'd have the 2 hooves, there'd be 2 nails, and coming down here, instead of this really weird, like, almost pseudo-duck thing going on here. So that'd be another cool thing to edit. But in terms of its general anatomy, I'm really digging this bulkier version of Edmontosaurus. I think it fits the animal very, very well. I'm a big fan. Just fix the feet and commit to making it more annectens, and it would be absolutely perfect. But I'm a big fan. OGB has done a good job with all these remakes. So now we're going to be moving on to our next animals here. So all the herbivores can hang out in here. Now we're going to be moving on to some big sauropods and some carnivores. So the next one is going to be Camarosaurus. Everyone's favorite, not Brachiosaurus, or the good mid-level sauropod. So look at this wonderful man we've got ourselves here, Camarosaurus. Let me get a good picture of you when you're out of that bush. I'll pause it and we can have a look at you, wonderful. So look at these wonderful boys. So we can see a lot of the changes here. The neck's been greatly thickened up and it fits much better, I think, with the general anatomy. Also, there's been changes to the skull here. Camarosaurus has like a really interesting looking skull. It's got like a very rounded skull. It's Macronarian, very Macronarian, so it looks kind of like Brachiosaurus, but much more bulky and a little bit shorter looking, but we can see that's been well applied here. Really nice, and we even know from evidence there seems to be some keratinized skin around here forming like a pseudo beak, but that's neither here nor there, potentially just some hard skin. Some people have interpreted it as like a pseudo beak, which I think is really cool. They're not a true beak, of course, because true beak, you can't really have teeth under it, or true teeth. That's how I kind of define a beak. But one little thing I'd like to point out is that we know most likely that the nostrils of these guys would be potentially down here, because we know from monitor lizards that have their nasals opening up here, that their nostrils kind of always end up down here. It's kind of the ancestral condition, and it seems that sauropods were no different from that. Still looks really nice though, and then we can move to the neck. I really like how wonderful they made the neck. Also, you can see the shoulders become a lot more obvious, and I think it looks really nice. The back's been nicely sloped, more rounded body. Some of the general anatomy's been changed, like the legs have been thinned out a wee bit. And then also the tail's been, I think, also extended a bit as well. It's just better general fit the Camarosaurus. But we've got some things to mention. I think the legs could be a lot thinner, and we can see the 5 toes and the claw. In reality, we know that Camarosaurus would have had a kind of a fleshy hoof with a dew claw, similar to things like Diplodocus and things like that. And if we look at the back feet here, I think we've showed this off on the Dreadnoughtus or some other sauropods we've covered in the Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights. They would have had 3 curving claws and like a tortoise-like feet back here. But of course, I got to point that out. But generally, looks really nice. I think they did a good job. Just those little feetsies edits, and it would be damn near perfect. Really came out nicely with the Camarosaurus, so we'll let these guys go off and do their own thing. Just want them to move out the way before we release our next sauropod. It's good that we get sauropods in this game. I really wish they could fight better. We need like sauropod fight animations. That'd be so awesome. Okay, then now they're going off and done their own thing. Now we'll be looking at Diplodocus. My OG bear. Now look at these wonderful balls. So we'll hide the dinosaur stats and take a look at our wonderful we'll take a look at that anyway. We've got our wonderful Diplodocus, came out wonderfully. So very long boy, look at that with his very long tail. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the inaccuracies and accuracies with it. You can see the neck's The body's been quite slimmed up quite a bit, though Diplodocus did have a much wider face than this. It seems to be like overly corrected to be really, really thin. And also, as I mentioned, the nares should be down here, but up here, but generally gives it a nice profile. I like the neck a little thicker, though it could probably be a little bit thinner. I think this is still much nicer than the original. Big, nice, muscular necks with some skin hanging off is very wonderful. I'd probably tone it down a little bit more than this. We also know that potentially there could be double rows of spines, not just this one row. And at the end of the tail, there would have been lots and lots of little spines coming out around here and really making the back of the tail look gnarly. So that's pretty awesome. And then we can also see here general changes to the body. The legs have been changed a bit. But if we look at the feet, it's got the same problem as the Camarosaurus over there. We've got these 5 digits, when in reality only the dew claw would have been there, and it would have been like more like a fleshy hoof. And the claws at the back here are still the same. So it would have been 3 curving claws with the tortoise-like feet in the back. But yeah, it's still a really, really nice sauropod. I really hope more people experiment with like adding new integument and new scale maps, because I'd love to see like an accurate Diplodocus with all the spikes going down the back as well. Be really, really interesting. I think it'd be wonderful. Really, really cool Diplodocus. So we'll watch them go off and do their own thing. Just make sure they're out of the way from... Wait, why are you lonely? I was thinking, why are you lonely? But we want to make sure they're away so we can have a look at our next animals. Should let them speed up and do their thing. So we've got our last edit by OG Bear. Lucky last. As long as these guys don't... Come on, move. Oh, they're doing a social animation. Oh, how cute. So now walk off and do your own thing. I want you away from here. Be gone. Be gone! Okay, so you're gone. So next we're going to have a look at our last carnivore. Last OG Bear edit, but going to be our first carnivore. We've got our Allosaurus edit by OG Bear. So let's get a look at you guys in the sun. Probably you would probably be the best pick. And we'll have a look at this one. Well, we can see this wonderful depiction of this guy. We can see that most of the changes are mainly in the face. We can see it's better to fit the many good skulls of Allosaurus fragilis that we have. Really good skulls of this guy. See the wonderful big lips as well, and the crest that it's got here. Could potentially extend it further with more keratin, but I think it looks fine as it is as well. Really, you could go speculative with that. Really interesting. I love Allosaurus. It's got a really cool shape to it. Then we can also see a lot of the changes here. The spikes have been removed, since that's pretty much speculation, but if you guys want it, I would like to see an a version of this edit with the spikes back, just to give it a little bit more character. But as well, we can see the neck has been changed to better fit what we know. It had a very S-shaped neck. Also, we've got the hands, and they are properly neutral. They're not pronated, like the clap, remember that? And not like bunny hands that the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park have. I think the hands are probably still a little too big, but really wonderful. I'll move back here. The body's been rounded. You can see the pubic boot as well. That will lead to the cloaca. I can see the changes to the legs. The thighs being thinned out a little bit, and also see the muscles here. It should be probably a little bit thinner as we go down here and then extend right here. Really like ostrich feet, but or cassowary feet's probably a better comparison, but really nice. And we can see it extends to the tail, so the tail's just generally edited to better fit the skeleton. So really good job with this guy. I'm a big fan, very big fan of this Allosaurus. So we'll watch them go off and do their own thing. Like how they're hanging out together. Lots of evidence they could have been in groups. Or theropods in general. So we're going to be moving on now. We're moving on to our new species. So we've got ourselves a little surprise here. I'll open it up and you guys can see So we've got here our wonderful Utahraptor, and this one I'm quite a big fan of, even though it could use some edits, I think. I'm a really big fan of this Utahraptor. Let me just get you in some better lights there, buddy. We've got ourselves a wonderful Utahraptor. I'll have a look at this guy. This one looks nicer. So we're gonna have a look at him. So Utahraptor is a large dromaeosaur from North America that lived during the early Cretaceous, and contains a single species Utahraptor ostromani, and is believed to be one of, if not the largest known dromaeosaurs discovered. And there's a lot that we really learning about this guy recently, because there's been a big Utahraptor block that's seems to have the remains of different Utahraptors of different ages, and it's been dug off for the past like 2 or 3 years, potentially more than that. And it's really revealing a lot about this animal's anatomy. And we used to think and used to reconstruct it as just a giant like Deinonychus or Velociraptor, but it really is a weirder animal than we thought from these remains. So it seems like it had this really big bulky head with this downturned jaw here. Really interesting. Also this like almost sailback, really bulky. It's almost like it was becoming a Tyrannosaur, you could say. But obviously it was becoming like a mid-level or mid-sized carnivore, almost taking up the niche of something like an Allosaurus. I think it's really interesting. And then we can see the arms here, though the arms are a little point of contention for me. Since we know that they were very much bird-like, it was very likely they would have held their arms very similar to birds, so it would have been kind of like an arrow shape, so it'd be arm, and then the wrist would kind of come down like that, instead of this kind of titanuran, kind of how they hold it. It would have been more like and then with probably pategi in there, and we know that this guy and his closest relatives have feathers, including the complex wing feathers, panaceous feathers, and all of that, but obviously we can't do that yet. So I'd like to see an edit with lots of feathers on it as well, though you could argue being a little bigger could have had a more sparse covering of feathers as well, so it's another valid argument. And then we can see the legs here. We'll have a look at another one with a probably better revealed. Look at this wonderful big claw. Very huge. So what we get the name Utahraptor obviously because it comes from Utah, but Utahraptor was kind of the inspiration for the raptors in Jurassic Park, since the even though they wanted to call it like Velociraptor, they found this really huge claw that belonged to Utahraptor. There was a dew claw there, and they're like, oh, we've got to have this in Jurassic Park. really wonderful. And then we can see the shortened tail. It isn't quite a long tail, so it's becoming bigger and bulkier. I think it's a really cool example of evolution and how animals often converge when they take up the same niche, since these guys becoming like a large carnivore rather than the little scurrying little velociraptors and Deinonychus types. This guy was 5 or 6 meters long, definitely a mid-size predator in the ecosystem. Probably even lived with animals like Acanthosaurus, things like that. So yeah, really interesting. I'm a big fan of this guy. Really big fan of Utahraptor. And next, we've got our wonderful last animal left. You guys will know LAStudios. Oh, wait. Utahraptor was done by NanoLancensis, who's done all sorts of different ports and things. Really awesome. But this next one was done by LAStudios. And you guys might be able to guess what this is. It's everyone's favorite big bad fish. And yeah, I'll just release it and show you guys what it is. So if you look ourselves here, we've got ourselves a Megalodon. Look at this wonderful guy. So Megalodon, which name means big tooth, is an extinct species of mackerel shark that lived from 23 million years ago to 3.6 million years ago, from the early Miocene to the Pliocene. And
they did this in the wild.
Oh.
Now they can fight in captivity.
I don't really want to hear that. But anyway, Megalodon is a mackerel shark, and it was originally believed to be a relative of the great white, but it seems to be a member of the extinct family Octotidae, which diverged from the great white shark back in the early Cretaceous, and it's more related to animals such as Otodus, which was another group of large sharks that were large macropredatory sharks. And the placement of this genus is still debated a bit, and some either considered a member of Octodus, Cacarocles, things like that. And we also know that there's traditional fossils have been found that shows that Megalodon was the final species in a line of animals that came from Octodus and that evolved with the Paleogene. So it's kind of the latest and greatest of its line. So this guy was so huge. It is the largest known and most powerful predator that ever lived, one of the largest, if not the largest. Though it's already known from its teeth and a few other remains, since sharks' bones are made of cartilage and are much harder to preserve, so we know a lot from its teeth. And estimates consider it to be between kind of 14 to 20 meters. Some even put it like 24 meters, but I believe the consensus is probably about 20 meters is probably its maximum range. There's been lots of different estimates for its size. And it's also been shown that it has a super large jaws, like 6 foot tall jaws, that you could probably stand in it if you weren't really tall. They had a bite force of around 24,000 to 108,500 to 182,200 newtons, or 24,400 pounds per square inch. And they had these very, very thick teeth here and here that you can see, very, very huge, that were developed for breaking bone and gouging into large prey. So the appearance of Megalodon, this will go to a little bit the tide of accuracy. Obviously, being only known from a few scant remains, it's kind of very hard to tell what they look like, but there have been a lot of ways people have been trying to kind of guess what they'd look like. And the most recent one was just the last year, though there have been some critiques of this, because obviously not including things like extinct animals, maybe other relatives. We'll watch this guy eat himself. Ooh. For some reason that really hurts the frame rate, but still cool nonetheless. As I was saying, some evidence suggests that from measuring different body proportions of other sharks, it seems that Megalodon most realistically kind of looked like a giant salmon shark, and it was like much more rounded, bulkier body with very, very large pectoral fins, very, very large tail fins as well, or caudal fins. Very, very large gills to compensate for its larger size. It's a reconstruction of it if you just look up accurate Megalodon, and I think it's probably the most accurate view we have of Megalodon. But the person who made this, LAStudios, was like, I want to make my own shark, and I think it came out wonderfully. And it's most likely equally as accurate. The other one has just got a little bit more scientific backing behind it, but this one I still think is a really wonderful design. I think it came out quite well. Though I am partial to the giant salmon shark kind of look. I think it's really, really cool. But also, Megalodon was a massive mega predator in its communities. It would have fed on pretty much anything it get its mouth around, including whales, seals, sea turtles, and juveniles would have been living in nurseries inhabiting coastal waters where they'd feed on fish and small whales. Though unlike great whites, who attack their prey from the soft underside, Megalodon could probably use its strong jaws to break into animals' chest cavities and puncture their hearts and lungs, or bite their tails and just try and immobilize them as fast as possible so they can get a good meal. Really, really cool animal here. So Megalodon is also not the only animal in its ecosystem. It also faced competition from animals like the Leviathan and other large macropredatory sperm whales, along with the smaller ancestors of killer whales that could have given it a bit of a run for its money. But you think, oh, this is such a huge shark, how did it go extinct? But the story of this, during the end of the Pliocene, when the ice ages were starting, there's been a lot of other estimates of what, or guesses of what have happened. Things like these sharks would have preferred warmer water. We're not sure if they had the same adaptations for living in cooler water that animals like salmon sharks and great white sharks have. So most likely they preferred cooler water, and as the world cooled, they wouldn't have been able to keep up, and a lot of the larger whales that they fed on would have been moving further north to feed on krill. so these guys would have not been able to find enough food to eat. And another factor as well is that the lowering of sea levels also reduced a lot of the places where they could find good nesting grounds. So it's possible that that could have affected them, and all of those contributing factors most likely, sadly, led to their extinction. And there's actually evidence that the extinction of Megalodon and the increased number of krill, since krill like to live in polar areas, and the increase of the polar ice caps led to the evolution of these giant whales that you get, like blue whales and fin whales, these giant filter-feeding whales that took advantage of that. And though there were still very large whales that lived with Megalodon, potentially even similar in size to them. We're going to watch this guy swim and grab another shark. Really, really wonderful. These guys probably would have eaten the ancestors, the great whites, or relatives of great whites, the great whites themselves. Oof. Still really, really wonderful. So yeah, I believe that's a good place to end. Really, really exciting seeing it eat. But yeah, Megalodons are such a cool animal, and it's amazing how much we can learn about it just from its teeth and the occasional remains of its vertebrae. But yeah, I think we're done here. I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to click the little bell icon to get notified when I upload anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.